Hey guys, welcome back to Sparkman Homestead. I have another Meals of the Week video for you. So the very first meal we are going to get started with is a skillet enchilada. I unfortunately don't have a linkable recipe for you guys because I was going off of a craving that I had. So I just was kind of winging it with this recipe. I was craving enchiladas, but I really didn't want to go through the process of, rolling them out and putting them in the oven and waiting. So I decided to make a skillet version of it. My meat was not completely thawed out, so it did take a little bit longer for me to cook this ground beef. But what you want to do is take a pound of ground beef or whatever meat you want to use. You can definitely use chicken in this. That would definitely taste amazing as well. You could even get away with using like a canned cooked chicken, or if you have leftover like rotisserie chicken, that would also probably work pretty good in this as well. I wanted to add a little extra protein kick to it, so I took a can of my home canned black beans and I just rinsed them out and set them aside. Once the meat was almost completely cooked through, I just came in and added a little bit of salt and pepper just to season a little bit. Once the meat was finally done cooking, I took a can of my enchilada sauce. If you watched my last pantry tour, you may remember that I have a lot of enchilada sauce that I have to get used up. So this was actually kind of an inspiration for this meal as well, other than the fact that I was craving it. So you're going to take that can of enchilada sauce and you are just going to stir it until it is completely incorporated. And then if you are adding them, add black beans at this time. Now I also wanted a little bit more of spice to it, which was kind of a mistake because I forgot that this was really, really spicy enchilada sauce I had made. So I put jalapenos in this on top of the spicy enchilada sauce. This was a very, very spicy dish. So you're just gonna cook that until some of that sauce starts to reduce a little bit. And then you're gonna come in and add about 1 cup of cheddar cheese to that. Stir it until the cheese is nice and melted. Again, I was just waiting until some of my sauce reduced because it was a pretty runny enchilada sauce. So once everything is reduced, that is your meal. Now, Steven chose to serve his on top of nacho chips, so he kind of made like nachos with it, which was really, really good. I chose to serve mine on top of rice. You can do this on top of a salad as well. Like, it is really versatile what you could do with this. I loved this meal, and it was so quick. This meal honestly came together in under 15 minutes. It was so delicious. So I just topped my rice with some of that enchilada sauce. I put a little of our fresh cilantro, which surprisingly, we still have fresh cilantro in the garden. It is amazing. So I topped it with a little bit of that and then a little bit more of the shredded cheddar cheese and some sour cream. And again, such a quick, delicious, easy meal. It's like enchiladas without all of the work of making the enchiladas and in under 15 minutes. For the next meal, we are going to make a very, very popular meal. I know that it had gone viral a very long time ago, and there are literally hundreds of these recipes online, but we are going to make the famous Marry Me chicken. I had a different plan for this night, and I decided to do this, and I'm so happy I did. This one turned out really, really good. I have left the recipe linked for you guys in the video description of the particular recipe that I used. So what you're going to do is take 3 large chicken breasts, boneless, skinless, and you're going to slice them lengthwise into thin cutlets. You want them to be thin enough that they are going to cook pretty quickly. So you're going to take about 3 to 6 tablespoons of flour, lightly season that with some salt and pepper, and then add your chicken strips to that and just coat them with the flour so that they're nice and coated. When you're taking them out of the bag, make sure that you shake that excess flour off of them because you don't want too much flour. So you're going to take about 1 tablespoon of avocado oil or any oil of your choice and approximately 1 to 2 tablespoons of butter and melt that in a saucepan. And then you're going to take your chicken cutlets and you are going to cook them so that they are completely cooked through. It usually takes, depending on how thick they are, about 5 minutes per each side. So once they were completely done, I removed them out of the skillet. Now I'm going to add about 1 teaspoon of garlic or 3 cloves minced garlic to that. And then you are going to stir in 1 cup of chicken stock. What you want to do is just make sure you're deglazing that pan. So slowly stir it in while scraping the bottom of the pan because you don't want to miss any of that good chicken flavoring that is on the bottom. So you're just going to completely stir that in, and then you're going to add a little bit more salt to that if need be. My broth is unsalted, so I add a pretty good heaping teaspoon of salt to that. So again, I'm just stirring a little bit more just to make sure everything is off the bottom. And then you're going to add in 1 cup of heavy cream to that. and also half a cup of grated Parmesan cheese. You're gonna let that sauce simmer for a little bit and just kind of wait for the Parmesan cheese to all melt. Once it is simmered for a couple minutes, you're gonna come in and season it with 1 teaspoon of chili flakes, a 1/4 teaspoon of oregano, and a 1/4 teaspoon of thyme. You don't necessarily have to add that much chili flakes if you don't like the heat. At this point, you can also season with additional salt and pepper to taste. So we're gonna come in and add 1/3 cup of sun-dried tomatoes. I love getting to use these. These are sun-dried tomatoes I made this summer with my garden fresh tomatoes. I believe I have a video that I showed you guys how to make them. I will leave that linked for you because these are so delicious. So you're gonna add your chicken back to your skillet with the sun-dried tomatoes, and you're just gonna cook that for a little bit longer, just until that sauce starts to thicken up a little bit. I came in and added a little bit more sun-dried tomatoes because I really love these things. So I just kind of wanted a little bit more hit of tomato in there. So just add that, add whatever you like to eat. If you want to add more, add more. If you want to add less, it is all up to you. That's the beauty of cooking at home. So once everything's cooked and it's thickened up to your desired thickness, you're going to take it off the heat and garnish it with a little bit of fresh basil. I didn't have any fresh basil, so I just used some dried stuff. Worked perfect, tasted delicious. So you can serve this over top of pasta or rice. I had some leftover pasta from the enchilada night, so I chose to put it over top of rice. And then I had a little bit of garden fresh peas in my freezer, so I use those as well on the side. This, I know why this recipe is viral, because it is really, really delicious. We had leftovers and we almost kind of had a fight about who was going to get to have leftovers the next day because there wasn't enough for both of us, but this one's a good one. And like I said earlier in the video, I have left any of the recipes that are linkable for you guys. They will be in the video description or show notes for you. For the next meal, we are going to make a delicious soup. It is a roasted garlic cauliflower soup. This night was freezing cold. This was when we were having the couple of days of like really cold nights. Like it was in the 20s on these particular nights. So this soup was really appreciated. So this recipe calls to use 1 large head of cauliflower florets or 4 to 5 cups of cauliflower. I did not have any fresh cauliflower, so I kind of improvised here and used some frozen stuff. But I didn't want to roast it from frozen, so I just put it in my steamer basket, threw it in the microwave for about 5 minutes until it was not cooked, but it wasn't frozen either. So I'm getting my garlic ready. You want to roast this garlic with your you want to roast the garlic with your cauliflower. So you're going to take the head of garlic, a whole head of garlic, and just cut the top part off so it can expose the whole clove of garlic or all the cloves, and then just top it with a little bit of oil. I use an avocado oil, and then just wrap it up in the foil and put it on your cookie sheet. Now this recipe does also call to use 1 medium-sized onion, just cut into small pieces. I typically don't cook with onions, or I just use onion powder just because my husband Steven is not a fan of the texture of onions, but we blend everything together. So I was able to get away with using the onions in this. So my cauliflower is now cooked. If you are, again, you're using fresh stuff, just omit that whole steaming process and just jump right to this process. But you're gonna take your cauliflower, lay it out on a baking sheet. I have my oven preheated at 400 degrees, and you are going to coat this with approximately 3 tablespoons of an oil of your choice. I used avocado oil, and then you're going to come in and add some salt and pepper and just get everything all mixed together and all incorporated, like get the seasoning all throughout it, and then add that garlic to the tray and put that into the oven. You want to cook that until the cauliflower is completely cooked through. It usually takes about 35 minutes, it says. Then I take your onion and I added about a tablespoon of avocado oil to my saucepan, and you're going to cook the onion until it is completely translucent and cooked through. Now I chose to kind of do a little extra step here and added a little bit of red chili flakes to this. It added that extra deliciousness to it. It turned out really, really good with that chili flakes in it, but you don't need to do that. That's not in the original recipe. Halfway through cooking your cauliflower, you want to just make sure that you kind of toss it a little bit. So halfway through, I just pulled it out and moved it around a little bit and put it back in. This is after about 35 minutes of it being roasted, so it's perfect. The garlic was also perfect at 35 minutes. Next, in a large blender, you want to add your roasted cauliflower, your roasted garlic, and your cooked onion, as well as adding in 4 cups of chicken broth, or if you want to make this a vegetarian, you can add 4 cups of a vegetable broth to this. The recipe also mentions if you want to make this soup a little bit creamier, then what you can do is sub 1 cup of broth for 1 cup of milk or heavy cream. So what I did was I used 3 cups of a chicken broth and 1 cup of my whole milk and just added that in replacement, and it did make for a lot creamier soup. So then you're going to add salt and pepper to taste and then blend this for approximately 1 minute. You just want it nice and smooth. Depending on the type of blender that you're using, it may take less time or it may take a little bit more time to blend. Once it's all blended, you are going to take that and add it back to the same saucepan that you cooked your onions in, and then you are going to add about 1 heaping cup of cheddar cheese, like a shredded cheddar cheese to this, and then just stir it until it's incorporated, and you want to let that simmer for about 10 to 15 minutes and just adjust your seasonings, just like adding more salt and pepper to taste. So after the 15 minutes, you're going to take it off the heat, and there is your soup. It says you can garnish it with green onions or extra shredded cheese. I served this with some homemade sourdough baguettes on the side, and this meal was so delicious. This is a really good soup. For the next meal, we are going to make a Cajun Butter bourbon steak. On this particular night, I actually wanted to make steak sandwiches, but then I found this recipe on Pinterest and I thought, nope, we're gonna have steaks with roasted potatoes on the side. That's what I was craving, so that's what we went with. What I'm gonna do first of all is make up some Cajun seasoning. To a small bowl is add 1 tablespoon of smoked paprika, 2 teaspoons of chili powder, 1 teaspoon dried oregano, 1 teaspoon onion powder, 1 teaspoon cayenne pepper, half a teaspoon black pepper, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. You don't have to use the full teaspoon of cayenne pepper if you don't want it to be as spicy. I think I only ended up actually adding about a 1/4 teaspoon to that. So you're gonna add it all to the bowl, mix it all together, and then you can use in this any type of steak that you prefer. The recipe does say to use 2 pounds of New York strip steak. I believed I used a ribeye in this. So what you want to do is just take that Cajun seasoning and just coat the steak on both sides of it. Just make sure it is good and marinated. And it says to put it in the fridge for 30 minutes to 1 hour. I just put it in just while I was making my other marinade because you do double marinate these. Now the other thing that I did, you need to make sure you are reserving some of that Cajun seasoning for this step right here. I accidentally put my hands in after I had touched the raw meat and put it in the Cajun seasoning, so I had to throw it out. I couldn't use it for this, so just make sure you're not doing that. So now what we're gonna do is make the second marinade. You're gonna take a 1/4 cup of dark brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of bourbon, 4 garlic cloves minced, 1.5 tablespoons of grain mustard, 1/3 cup of a dark soy sauce, 1/3 cup of an oil. I just used a avocado oil in this. The recipe does say olive oil. And then 1 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. You're gonna whisk that all together. And then I took the steaks out of the fridge. Again, if you wanna let them rest for up to an hour, it's probably good just to let that Cajun flavor really infuse them. I just added them to my Tupperware marinator container. It does say to put them into a bowl because you are going to put this into the fridge to marinate. You're going to pour all of that liquid marinade on top of them. I just kind of moved the steaks around a little bit just to make sure they were good and covered. And it says you want to marinate this for a minimum of 30 minutes up to 6 hours. Definitely the longer the better. That is what the recipe says, and I definitely agree with that 100%. So I decided to do some boiled potatoes on the side, so I was just showing you that there. And anytime I do a steak, I really like to have fried mushrooms on the side. So I took about 1 tablespoon of oil, 1 tablespoon of butter, and just melted that and then added the mushrooms and let them cook completely through. I was just showing you also, I am going to make some green beans on the side. That's just some of my home canned green beans. Now to season the mushrooms, I added a little bit of garlic salt to that instead of just using regular salt. And then I added a little bit of pepper. And again, I'm gonna just cook these until they're nice and soft. So once they were completely cooked through, I removed them out of the skillet and put them in a bowl, put them aside. And then I'm going to take another tablespoon of oil, another tablespoon of butter, and just get that melted. And then we are going to cook these steaks. So you, depending on how you like them cooked, I like about a medium rare. So I cook these for about 4 to 5 minutes on each side. I forgot to season these with salt and pepper before I put them in. So I was just seasoning at least the one side with some salt. So you're just going to flip them. Now it does say once your temperature, internal temperature of the steak reaches 135 degrees, that is considered a medium rare. So I pulled them at that point. Then in the same pot that you just fried your steaks in, you are going to take that reserved marinade, you're going to dump it into the cast iron and just cook it until it starts to thicken. Once it gets to a nice thick consistency, you are going to add about 3 tablespoons of butter, and then you're just going to cook that until that butter is melted. This is what you are going to top your steaks with. Now, I completely forgot to get a video of what it looked like, but I can assure you this was amazing. This meal definitely, Steven's like, you need to do your steaks like this from now on. It was really, really good. So this is going to be the last meal for this video, and we are going to finish with the most amazing dessert ever. This is a gingerbread brownie with eggnog frosting. It is as good as it sounds. It is literally like Christmas in a bite. It is really, really good. Definitely planning on making this again for like a Christmas platter. So what you want to do is you can either use foil or parchment paper for this. You want to grease it and then put a little bit of flour on it. Take that parchment paper or foil, whatever you're using, and you are going to put that into a 9 by 13 casserole dish and then set that aside. You want to take 8 tablespoons of butter. I just use salted butter, but it does suggest to use an unsalted butter, and you want to completely melt that. Then you're going to take 4 ounces of a semi-sweet chocolate. I used a chocolate chip, but the recipe does suggest to use like chocolate and then chop it up like a baker's chocolate. And then you're going to add that 4 ounces of chocolate to that melted butter when it's nice and hot so that you can get those chocolate chips all melted up. And then you're going to set that bowl aside. To a medium-sized bowl, you are going to add 1.5 cups of an all-purpose flour. I just use an unbleached all-purpose in this. And then a 1/4 cup of unsweetened cocoa powder, and then 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, and then 1/2 teaspoon of ground ginger, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg, and then a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves. Just whisk that together and then set that bowl aside. Then in a large mixing bowl, you are going to take 2 room temperature eggs, 1 cup of packed light brown sugar, 1/3 cup of molasses, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Now this recipe does suggest to use 3 tablespoons of a crystallized ginger, finely chopped. I like ginger, but I really did not want it to be really heavy in this brownie, so I opted to actually not use it. I am so glad that I chose not to use it, but it is in the recipe, so if you really like the ginger flavor, then definitely add it to it. So you're gonna whisk all of that stuff together, and then you're gonna take your chocolate butter mixture, and then you're going to whisk that into here as well. Once everything is good and incorporated, you're gonna take that bowl with the dry stuff, and you are going to fold it in. At this point, you do not want to overmix the brownie mix. This is where a lot of brownies tend to go bad and kind of go to the cake-like texture, is when you overmix the batter. So you just want to lightly mix it until it's incorporated. Then you're going to take that batter and add it to your parchment-lined casserole dish. Now I have my oven preheated at 325 degrees, and we are going to cook this for about 25 to 30 minutes. I came and checked it at the 30 minutes and it still wasn't done, so I put it in for an additional 10 more minutes and then pulled it out, and it was completely cooked. You want to let these brownies cool completely before you do anything with them. You're going to leave them in the pot, or the pan, and let them cool. Once they are completely cooled, then you're going to take them and put them onto a wire rack, let it cool a little bit more. Then at that point, you can get your icing all started. So to make the icing, to my stand mixer, I am adding 4 tablespoons of butter. butter and make sure it is softened. And then you are going to start with adding 1 1/4 cup of powdered sugar. You're going to mix that butter and sugar together until it's kind of all incorporated, and then you're going to come in and add 4 ounces of a softened cream cheese. Now it does suggest to cut it up. I didn't, I just added block in and it was fine. Then you're going to mix that until that's all nice and smooth, and then you're going to come in and add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, a 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, and 1 to 2 teaspoons of eggnog. I added that and then just mixed it up a little bit, and then you're going to come in and add another cup of powdered sugar and then mix it. Now at this point I decided it needed a little bit of extra eggnog, so I added in probably about 1/2 tablespoon more eggnog and then whipped it, and then it was all done to my liking. So I took the cooled brownie and just did a really generous layer of frosting on top of it. I couldn't believe how amazing this was. Like, I thought at first, I'm like, it'll be okay, but no, this is like a nice chewy chocolate gingerbread cookie almost with the eggnog frosting. It's delicious. So this is the last meal for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and again, I hope I give you a little bit of inspiration for your upcoming week. Try this brownie if you are making like any Christmas cookie platter. This brownie is definitely worthy of the platter. I hope you guys have a great day or night whenever you're watching this, and I will see you on the next video. Bye guys.